Hello. Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Before the drive away. But I mean, the bricks got painted in the front, look good. You know, someone's good. Oh, they painted this part of our road. Yeah, she marked it as do not touch, like they like this. So it's like, right. So no, but yeah, this day is a Monday. It's I love it. I love it. So super fun about that. You great?
That's not the same.
Actually, that was
So it finally came in today, and so she was spent some time there, but they filled up like now we gotta wait till tomorrow morning to get it back again. 24 hours. So we're gonna have some more Thursday. Yeah, but a lot of it is like, all right, that's like day 4. But yeah, I haven't gone down to see any of these seasons. Like, everything looks good. Line down there, we fixed the one floor thing. She's sweet. Yeah, he's tearing the scene upstairs and falling down. So that was restored. That's exciting. So we'll see how it goes. I'll go down this week and let you know how it goes. Okay.
It's okay.
That'll make life so easy.
Yes. But I think it shows up. No, not at that point.
One last one, try to do it again.
How are you, Eric? Good, how are you? Oh, living the dreams. No more school board meetings. I'm lucky. Well, yes, school, but not the way I should be on. Yeah. So one thing I thought of that. I saw him a couple weeks ago. Oh, we saw him for Shalom a week ago on Monday. Oh, okay. And he's, yeah. So I think I can think of like good luck. It's good. I'm so happy. 4 years, he said. He's looking to retire. Get back with the kid. We still keep him for a year. Just one? He doesn't know.
Thank you all for coming out to the community meeting tonight. We'll start with curriculum. Mr. Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Lackey. Well, this is the curriculum, and so we have 7 multiple day conferences coming up, and they're all listed there. So if there are any questions or thoughts about them, they're listed. I had a question actually, and I may have heard the answer to this before, but I don't recall what a refugee education class is about. But yes, so if anyone has the answer, I'd be curious.
Yeah, refugee is a new designation to the from the state. It came in a couple of years ago. There's certain things, certain characteristics of if people qualify or if they don't qualify, based on their own language, how long they've been in the country, what their living circumstances are, that type of thing. When this first came out, I'm going to say 3 years ago, I think we had 1 student that qualified as a refugee. Last year we had 22, I think some of that difference was just knowing the identification. Yeah.
So if there are any questions or comments on any of that? Oh, this is the second question that's coming from me. If a director, this may be the first time this was ever asked, if a director wanted to go to a learning to love reading course, has that ever been done before? Or is that totally some of the courses sound interesting, so I don't know if the director could go to a class like loving to love reading. Maybe it's a silly question, but I just thought.
I think it's a question. I don't know if it's been done before or not, but any professional development that we were hosting in the district, the school board director would be more than welcome to come and join in and learn with our teachers. I think with another district, there was a cost involved. I would have to look into that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Joe?
Yeah, Budget and Finance Committee, item A is approval for payment of the bills. Some attachments, if anybody have any questions on those. Just kind of go through the letters here, holler out if you want to bring up any questions. Letter B is the treasurer's report. Letter C, the student activities report. Letter D is in agreement with the Vista School, as is letter E is another Vista School agreement. Letter D.
Mr. Burrell's here, can you update us on letters D through?
E through Z.
Yeah.
No problem, guys. You'll see, this is a busy time of the year for all of our contracts. These are contracts that come up on an annual, yearly basis. Some of the contracts we will utilize, like Yellow Breeches, River Rock, you'll see for 3 students, Huffman Homes, 1 student, 1 student. But for those that don't have students attached to it, that's for services if they get placed there, like DICON. I just got one for the Meadows. Those are agreements that if one of our kids go to that type of placement, we just enter into agreement saying we'll foot the educational costs of those. They're just standard practice to get them board approved every year. So if you look at 8K, JKI there, Keystone Health Services, that's for our PACE classroom kiddo that we spoke about that I shared, ClearPath Pediatric Therapy, that's our speech and language that helps out in those intense needs. Valley Youth, that's the memorandum of understanding about the truancy program that we want to implement at the high school. Central Penn, that's psychiatric work, and that's about it. So I know there's a big long list of it, but they usually come up every year.
What about Huffman Academy?
Huffman Academy, we actually, it's a residential treatment facility. kids get placed there. We currently have 2 kids that were placed there. One of them's projected to come back, get discharged in November. And then the other one, I don't know when they're gonna get discharged, but that's for two specific students.
How long have we been with Hopkins?
This is my 3rd year, okay? We had a high school student a couple years ago get placed there. Fabulous job. She graduated. She was not on the path to graduate. She got some assistance, some help. She graduated, so we have a pretty good working relationship, but currently we have 2 kids there. Any other questions, guys? I know it's a heavy list there, but.
Is that in Pennsylvania or is that out of state?
No, in Pennsylvania, it's down by Littlestown. It's right north of Littletown. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Deacon, that's your area. But I know I head south and Littlestown's beyond that, so it's right north of Littlestown.
Okay.
Yep.
It's an orphanage, right?
Yep.
It's a beautiful facility. We
Yeah.
did a visit there when I was high school principal, just to see where the students were going. And as Dave says, residential treatment, so they stay there. But it's like a little college campus, almost a bunch of brick buildings, beautiful campus.
They do some,
Students with high needs.
they do some therapeutic horseback riding, so they have barns there, and it's a really neat facility. Any other questions, guys? Awesome. Thank you. Yep.
Takes us through letter O. Letter P was an agreement with Crabtree Warball for the feasibility study.
Clarification on that, what all that entails?
Yeah, that's Mr. Yoder to speak to that.
So it is for the next 4 or 5 months, we'll be going over the feasibility study. That's every district building, giving us maintenance plans for all of the buildings. Then there's an enrollment element to that. And then they're gonna be coming back at the end with some high-level proposals to move forward with middle schools and SLCs and things like that. And I believe there's supposed to be a presentation next week.
Crabtree will be Crabtree will be here next week, Mr. Spilly, on Tuesday to speak about the scope of the feasibility study to the board.
So it's more than a feasibility study, it's.
It's just a feasibility study.
How would you define more than a feasibility study? What do you think?
I thought, the RFP went out, and if you look at the contract, it talks about construction services as well too. So it's not that they do the feasibility study and then they're done.
Yes, this contract is just for a feasibility study. It's not for any construction.
I think if you look at the cover sheet, it says for the following project, district-wide feasibility study. I think what you're seeing here is a generic document that's
Right.
meant to cover every agreement you could possibly have with an architect.
This is the agreement that was provided to us by Crabtree Warball, reviewed by our solicitor and myself. We had probably upwards of 10 changes that we agreed upon. But this is the standard AIA document that pretty much every architect uses for any service they provide. But it is just for the feasibility study, right?
Even after that line says, any other projects only as approved by the school board. So if you would say, we heard this or that in the feasibility study, we'd like to go further with that, you have another AIA agreement.
Just want a clarification, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure you could provide
Yeah, he'll
The-
provide more.
official clarification of that.
Okay, letter Q is an agreement for testing, adjusting, and balancing of the systems at Northern Elementary.
Yeah, question on that. Why wasn't this part of the HVAC contract?
It's an outside third party that is really double checking what the HVAC contractor is. So this is totally standard with every job we've ever done. You bring in an outside third party for all the testing and balancing and whatnot.
But it wasn't part of the total package.
No, it's an outside service. It's an extra service.
What's the estimated cost of something like this?
22.5.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't remember whatever was on the attachment there. Yeah, we did there was a proposal process. We had 3 or 4 people respond or vendors respond, and this was obviously the low proposal.
Did we have to contract this, or did the GC set this up?
No, this is through us. Yeah, through the architect and the construction manager.
But I think typically with these projects, what's changed over the last 15 years or so is traditionally TAP, testing, adjusting, balancing, would have been sub to your HVAC contractor. But to provide a better form of independent inspection, it goes in the vein of, there was probably separate contracts for like site inspection or I don't know.
It doesn't fall under any subcategories in the contract.
Yeah, it's been broken out to provide, I would say it's likely been broken out to provide independent, the ability for the district using the conduit of CHA to support the selection to make sure we don't have somebody who's hired by the HC who could, submit whatever numbers they want. The only question I had is this for, there's been multiple phases completed already. There would have been TAP work with that. Is this covering that work?
Yeah, it's gonna be all inclusive.
Okay.
Yes.
So have they been performing all the work for the previous phases?
No,
So who's been,
I don't think there's been any tax on it yet. It'll be all done here at the end of the process, or project.
Well, I just find it unusual that you have to have an outside person when you already have an HVAC contractor. Okay.
Sometimes they actually have this as a private bid, like as part of the bid documents, but I mean, this is a pretty small contract.
Yeah, I know. It just was, something was added on, it just didn't expect it.
and I would add, I think, moving forward, if we wanted to have feedback on, hey, are there any, it's gonna fall within your soft costs, so if we wanted a better projection of, hey, what type of during construction fees could we be looking at, whether it's permits or local inspections or independent third party that we would want to inspect the contractor's work, we could make that a priority to have that feedback up front.
There are is approve a change order with Lowbar also for the Northern Elementary project.
Question on that too. What was involved in that? I saw it was filling in louvers or something.
Yeah, so the original plan,
Louver infills, yeah.
right, so the original plan was to just kind of leave in place and basically paint them. They did one infill kind of as a tester for free. When we looked at it, we're like, yeah, for the bang for the buck to get it looks amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no,
that's,
I wholly
Yeah.
agree with you there.
we've unfortunately done a lot of leave it as is, and then they just look old, they become maintenance issues and stuff. So to fill them in with brick, it's a big difference. It looks great.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure of that.
Yeah, but that's what they're for.
Okay, and then letter S is an agreement with KBS Waste for waste removal services.
Yeah, this was in Mr. Johnson's write-up. If you looked over, I know I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but it's a different contract. But he did have this written up in his buildings and grounds report. It was on page 3. We currently use Waste Management. This should save us about $20,000. Their costs have been going up pretty dramatically over the past couple of years. And as Mr. Johnson stated, that Spring Grove and Dover both use KBS right now. So that's what this is for. He went out and looked for potential savings, and fortunately found some here with KBS Waste Management.
KBS is out looking for business right now. They hit us.
Everything.
Yeah, so we had some other action items. So we have this requests. Run through those, some Dillsburg Kiwanis for the, using Dillsburg Elementary for pick and drop for the little kids. High school for blueberry distribution. Some field usage for their coaches competition. And the West Shore YMCA for use of the middle school for youth basketball. Anybody have any questions on any of those? Okay, we can move to discussion items. We have the building and grounds update.
Real quick, similar to what you've been seeing here for the past few months, Matt has been putting them together. You see the ongoing projects. You see what is all has been completed and ongoing with the middle school. A lot of stuff going on there that we had talked about with the board here several months ago. And we will be bringing Matt in. The plan is to have him in October to kind of do a full summary of all the summer work that's gone on. Have some pictures for you. You'll be able to ask questions and whatnot. But we'll do a kind of a full-scale update, building ground update in October. Also, he had on there, I mentioned the trash service proposal was on there, and just a couple running items there with the greenhouse that we're bringing in a third party on 2 of the items. They really don't use that space until about January, but we're going to continue to work on that to make sure that if there's any sort of leaking or anything, we're going to get that in here in the near future. But overall, that's looking pretty good and just about totally completed. So any questions on that update?
The third party on the greenhouse, do they specialize in greenhouse work?
Yes. Yep.
Found a local greenhouse specialist in Dillsburg. He came in, checked out the greenhouse. He said he would like to think about it and come back. He wanted to do a flood test. Whatever that is, I think run some water, run a hose on the top of it, and see if it's actually leaking or if it's just letting in water as a greenhouse might let in water. According to him, they're kind of designed to be not porous, but there can be some circumstances where you actually want water coming in. We didn't quite understand it, but he wants to come in and do a full test. So that's what we're waiting for. I think the other detail was that, if I could just add in, another detail was that he did get, Matt did get a quote for full replacement of the glass, if it would cover that, from Lobar. The quote did not include labor, but those are the two steps forward this month, as I recall.
You would do glass again, would you use a greenhouse company that specializes in greenhouse glass, as opposed to main construction, just GC, just replace glass?
I think that would be a really good question for, we've got a local expert who's coming in and partnering with us. That would be a good question for him. See if there's any difference in it for GC or a greenhouse glass installer.
The question I had from the report was on the track, and then we repainted, but I guess there was some damage to it, and it says here about additional repairs. What's the time? We're not using it to compete now, but we're letting people back in to be on it. Is there a timeline of?
I don't know the timeline. I can get that for you.
It's like a sinkhole over there in lane 1, gentlemen.
Okay, any other questions for the building and grounds update? Okay, we can move on to item B, discussion item for retention pond fencing. Question, this was something that came up from a board member in between meetings, and the administration's has some feedback.
Yeah, after receiving the question, I spoke with Mr. Gunning. We talked it through and we decided that we should provide the opportunity for the board to have a full discussion in this forum. Jason reached out to the site manager for some information, and he share that with us and then we can discuss.
Yeah, so as Dr. Meakin said, I reached out to K&W, who was the site engineers who planned all of the site work and stormwater retention, basins and ponds and whatnot. So I did just add a bird's eye view here, so hopefully everybody understands kind of where we're talking about. So it's off to the front right in that yellow shaded area is where the new retention basin is. When we asked them why this was placed here, K&W stated that it was the main source, or it's near the source of where most of the stormwater runoff is going to be, which is the parking lot there. If you remember, we added parking into that area. Also, it's sheet flow, so it's able to just run directly off into the basin instead of having a lot of underground piping and whatnot into the basin, which also is most cost effective, both having it near the source and using sheet flow. The next question was regarding a fence and why there was no fence around this or planned to be in this. If you can go to the next screen. So there's no ordinance that would require a fence there. The township does not require a fence around that basin. Without having the fence, obviously there's reduced maintenance to be done. If you have a fence, there's a lot more yard maintenance in terms of weed whacking and whatnot. The basin does have a maximum 72-hour drain cycle. It's not a completed basin yet. It's going to be completed here.
Thank you.
So 72-hour drain cycle. It will not hold water for over 72 hours. We do have the ability to drain it faster if we so choose. They are putting plantings and shrubbery and whatnot within it, so it's going to look pretty natural when it is complete. That's going to be happening this fall during the planting season here this fall. Again, not having a fence was done mainly because of cost effectiveness and because it's going to be pretty natural when it is completed. That I did ask just kind of, considerations, pros and cons of why we may want to put a fence in. Obviously, a fence would help keep students out. Of course, we'd have to check to see how high we're going to do that to make sure kids and people aren't using it as a jungle gym and climbing over it and whatnot. And again, as I said, once it's established, it's supposed to look fairly natural. There's going to be plantings involved in it. So what you're seeing now is not close to being the finished project or basin. And of course, cost is a factor if we choose to do so. So that is what came from K&W, reasons why it was planned for where it's at, reasons why there's no fence, and just kind of some talking points of what to think about if we choose to put a fence.
So that, at this point, we turn it over to the board for discussion. I think the explanation has been given why there's not a fence there and what the original plans were made, why the administration supported that decision. But it's not something that we're married to administratively or neutral to it. So I think it warrants some more discussion.
Always had water, I know it's not done yet, say it's not done, but it's always had water. And it's, the last time I looked at it last week was about 3 feet. I think it's an attractive nuisance. We have baseball games back there, you have kids there, kids are running around sometimes, parents bring their kids to a baseball event, they run around. I think they could fall in there, we've already had a car drive into it. Wasn't heard, but someone drove into that area. So it is an area too that people come around that corner pretty fast. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody doesn't run into it again after construction's complete. I'm personally disappointed that it was put there because we lost a lot of parking for baseball, for back to school nights, for field days and other things that go on out there when teachers have their kids out. So I'm disappointed that we did that there at that site. Also created a wetland, which is definitely a concern with the West Nile virus and things that we have a lot of going on now. So Yeah, there's a lot of water.
I stopped by last week, there's maybe 8 inches in it. I'd say the photo's a little bit deceiving there because you're looking at the existing site plan and there was some expansion of that access drive back through there. I don't know which I believe was intended to have parking or if it's just for double stacking vehicles, I don't know. But so I don't know if folks are intending to park on the side closest to the basin, or if that's the access drive. And where I'm going with this, if there's parking there, I believe we more than likely have curb stops there, which assist in preventing vehicular, somebody creeping too close forward or being in reverse when they wanted to go forward and backing into it. Looks like it's about 3 to 4 feet deep is the depth of the basin, and it looks like it sits about 4 to 5 feet off of the drive there. There's a concrete pier for what'll be a sight light. But that's what I saw when I was back there. But I think the next question is what, if a fence is being considered, what is its purpose? Is it just to keep a person out? Is there anything associated with vehicular? And I think that's where we need a little feedback on what, that's the access drive or if that's a parking area there that you're gonna have some sort of curb stops.
And what was added there, it's kind of in between the yellow shading and the road that you see, there's another lane added, and it's both. It's more parking, and it's also a secondary access, and that's where we're gonna be able to stack parent pickup for once we flip-flop the building. So there is parking there. Again, we're under construction. I mean, that's not finished asphalt. It's not a finished swale right now. So I would assume, I haven't looked at the plans, I would assume there's gonna be curbing there. That makes sense, but I can't sit here and tell you if I look at the plan, it's gonna have curbing. I don't say curbing, like curbs or stops. Curb stops, thank you.
So typically, these basins they're designed 2 different ways. One way during construction, which is what it's in now. It's normally meant to hold a lot more water. When construction is done, and it sounds like that's how this one's designed, they'll put a more absorbable material in the bottom with all the plantings and everything. So it shouldn't, I haven't seen the design, K&W could speak to it specifically, but generally those are not designed to hold water, especially over a foot, over long periods of time. I would suspect this one won't be an issue once it's completed, but at the bare minimum, I think maybe we wait and see what it looks like when it's completed, and we're worried about it's holding a lot of water, then maybe something we can visit that.
That is exactly how it was designed, and they have it kind of closed right now. It's not supposed to be letting out a lot of water because of the active construction site, exactly. And yes, what you just said about they're going to be redoing that entire bottom of the basin with all of that is accurate.
What's to prevent another car from driving in there now during the construction phase? Is there something we could put up, like a construction fence or something, or get one car go in there? Those curbs aren't there yet.
So I don't want to get like real technical, but typically on a roadway design, if you can drive on the slope, you don't protect the slope with guide rail or anything like that. And if the water is not going to be like over 3 feet deep, you don't protect it from the car, because the damage to the car is going to possibly be more severe from anything to protect it than it will be just from driving in there. Generally, that's how it's
Just you were saying about plannings would be within the, it's not
No, within.
else have comments, questions?
Are you okay waiting till construction's done to see how it operates?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but in the meantime, we already got the particle in there, something, we need something temporary.
It's gonna be expensive to do something temporary, and
We got a temporary fence around the SLC for the last.
that's
20
not
years.
gonna stop a car from
No.
going through it, it's chain link fence. Yeah.
At least it'll be determined.
Just-
I worry about the kids out there.
In terms of vehicular traffic, I think you have to ask yourself the question of, you need to drive by the woods to get there, like, at what point are we protecting somebody? If somebody drives off the road and into a tree, they're probably more likely to suffer harm than if they go down into something that's got 8 inches, a foot of water in it. But I think that's, in terms of vehicular, it's that question of how much can you try and protect somebody from leaving the asphalt, and
Maybe we could ask our attorney if they feel like the traffic nuisance. They look at it and say, yeah, that looks like that would be problematic for us as a district, or liability there, maybe we should not. If not, I'm fine with waiting until.
When we had a car on the tennis court, we didn't put a barrier on Baltimore Street to prevent every possible scenario of something going off the road there, so.
We never prevent everything, but at the same time. Thank you for those.
Reach out to Brooke, and if she says.
Yes, I made
really
it.
no liability to the
Yes.
district.
I've made a note. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the discussion.
yeah, and the reality is it's tough to see what the school flow is gonna be right now, because if you go back there, there's just construction equipment and vehicles sitting everywhere, so, I just think they'll create some sort of signage or traffic flow movement to keep people simply away from construction and construction equipment, so. I think that's all for building grounds.
Okay, thanks, John. You're up with athletics.
Yes, we have 7 trips to approve there for our wrestling teams for this fall, boys, girls, and junior high. Some of them are familiar and some of them are new. We have 7 trips for our wrestlers. Some are postseason and some are tournaments during the season. Any questions on any of those?
I just wanted the board to be aware that, with the expansion of girls wrestling, not just here in Northern, but in general, that a number of the girls tournaments are scheduled on a Sunday. Right now, we do have a policy governing that, and you ask the superintendent if it's okay. I review, make sure we're in line with the current policy, and then okay it. But I think that's something that we should be aware of. I think with the natural progression of things, it won't be long until there's a question about why the girls tournament's always on Sunday, the girls will be on Saturday, and some of the boys will be on Sunday. So I think we just have to be aware of that going forward, that may be a policy that we may have to come back to. I just wanted to point that out.
A lot of that is driven by the lack of officials.
Officials,
Can't get them on Saturday, so
yes.
right now they're moving to Sunday.
Yes, it didn't seem to be a facilities issue, it seemed to be more of an issue.
Hopefully that will work itself out. It's a really growing sport.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Policy, Paul?
Okay, we have 5 policies for tentative approval. And we have approved the MOU shared enrollment agreement with West Shore School District.
Okay, I'll pull it up here. Any questions on the drive here on any of that?
Let's just word it.
Okay, I'm sorry, what was the question?
mostly just wording changes?
In the
And
policies.
just, oh, I read it was a summary, sorry.
Yeah, so in the board policy, 336 here, there was an addition of citation number 3 here, 1636.4. And that deals strictly with the Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act. So I worked with Suzanne on those two policies, 336 and 339, to make sure that the accommodations that are due to employees that fall under that. And then that's why there's a bold-faced place now that says in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. So that is where that change came from. There was an additional citation from a federal statute. So that was it, yes, just that phrase was added in that number 3 citation. For 330, 339 had the same change, but then there was an additional change. There was a school code law that was passed that said any school employee who has been elected to public office as a county official in Pennsylvania has a right to their job up to 4 years after assuming office. So I wanted to bring that up just to share that with you, and that's what was changed in 339. So section 1182, you'll see that if you were an employee for at least 5 years and you've been elected to public office as a county official, then your absence for the first 4 years of your elected period, you can expect to have a similar job waiting for you should you return after 4 years. So that's a change I didn't hear a lot about. It was a bigger change. We don't have anyone that falls under that right now as a county official, but again, sat down with Suzanne, just making us aware of that and updating policy so that we're aware of that should that happen. So that was the main change to 339. And then as Jason and Matt through federal programs can tell you, there's been a volume of changes in the UGG, in the Uniform Administrative Guidance for federal grants and federal awards. And so the changes to policy 626 and 626.1 all deal with those changes to the federal guidelines to how we spend and account for federal funds. And so that is what those policies changes are for. And, I have the link there. Jason and I sat down for these 3 policies and literally went through this updated federal uniform guidance, the UGG, and just to make sure things were good with our policy revisions that we made. And we were comfortable with 626, 626.1, and 827. So those are the main reasons why there were changes there for those. For example, $1 million or more in federal awards have to have an audit. Some of those types of things. Scanning records went from 5 years to 3 years. So just different changes like that. The other thing I wanted to say is, I know we're trying to make you more aware of when we have as meeting guidelines because of the changes to policies in 626. We have 6 administrative guidelines to our federal fiscal policy, and 4 of them had to be adjusted due to the change in the policy. So I have their changes in policy 626 result in updates to 4 of our 6 guidelines. Jason has already worked on those. I have them in draft form. Again, they just correlate to the changes in policy with a little more detail. So I want to make sure you were aware that some of our main guidelines are changing here. Similar to Mr. Becker's question, but not really. There was a definition of award of participant added to travel reimbursement for federal programs. So prior to this change in the UGG, it said it was school employees, professionals, administrative staff, and now it says and participants. And then it added a definition of participants, generally an individual participating or attending activities under a federal award, like conferences, so on and so forth. That might include community members, students, and conference attendees. So now there's a new definition within the policy for the term participant, because it's not just staff and students who might go to a training or conference that is funded with federal money, but it also now can be a participant. So that's changed. And then lastly, some whistleblower protections in the conflict of interest policy that just more specifically spell out that there can't be any retaliation should someone file any kind of complaint about how we do things. So those are the policy changes this month, and they are all for tentative. Questions on any of the policies? We'll bring them back in the same form next month, if that works, Mr. Miller. And then just moving on then to letter B. So back in 2016, we entered into an enrollment exception agreement with the West Shore School District for our students. And what that meant was they had a program there, their JROTC program, that we had a student that wanted to participate in that program. And when we checked in with the state, they were filled. They can have 1,746 ROTC programs across the country, and they were filled, and they weren't adding any more JROTC programs. And so one way the superintendent at that time thought of being able to allow our students to access that program was West Shore had it, and they were asking if they could have students come here for our ag and STEM programs. And so Dr. Stoltz and Dr. Eschbach got together in 2016 and created a shared enrollment agreement. And so this has been in place. It was updated in 2017 for some PIAA language on where the student can play, so on and so forth. But it's been in place since then. And we had a young lady, I think it was this year, who was looking into this possibility. And so I shared with Dr. Meekin this agreement that is in place, and we both agreed that probably a good idea to bring this to the board, make you aware of their agreement that's on the books. That student decided not to go forward and do the transfer, but wanted to make you aware of this enrollment exception agreement with West Shore and Northern York County School District. And so the only changes on this document are the date in the first sentence, and then a sentence, the last sentence, that we will review this again by 2029, so it doesn't just sit in perpetuity and never be brought up again. Everything else stayed exactly the same. So again, wanted to make the board aware of a current agreement that's in place with the West Shore School District, where we can send a student, one of our students can go there for their JROTC program, and they can send students here for either, well now it's ag, our STEM program isn't at the place it was in 16. But yeah, so just wanted to make sure you were okay with that. If you still were okay with us entering into that agreement, we would just ask for you to approve that. And West Shore is doing the same thing this month. Same exact agreement, both solicitors looked at it. So we'll look for approval next month. And also, if you have questions on this right now, it would be a great time. If there's anything I can.
My understanding, if the student opts to do that, if one of our students opts to go to the RTC program, they are graduating from West Shore.
Exactly. So they become a full student of that district. They get a diploma from West Shore. They provide their own transportation, unless they're have some special needs, then and it's in the related service of the IEP, then we start getting a little bit of a dicey. But yeah, they become a full-fledged student there, and they can be sent back to us if they're not behaving basically. Yeah, so that's exactly true. And the students have to come here. They can't just come here for a couple ag classes and go back. They become a full Northern student. Over the 8 years, I think I remember 3. I remember us sending 1, and I think I remember West Shore sending us 2. 1 or 2, or maybe 1. So, is it heavily used? No. 2 to 3 students over 8 years. So, but questions or concerns about continuing with this agreement? I don't have any. It's an opportunity just to give a kid. And I did check on, again, maybe adding, I'll talk to Mr. Raymond a little bit about that, but right now, Lower Dolphin just added 1, but they went through the NDCC route, which is fully funded by the district. If you go through the JROTC route, which is a 50-50 split, then it's about $200,000 a year line item to run the program. So those that are paying for it fully by themselves, those districts, they go to the top of the wait list. And that's how Lower Dolphin added theirs recently. But if you stick to the traditional JROTCC, there's still a pretty long wait list to add.
Good, Mr. Miller?
Good, Paul?
Good.
Okay, you're good. Board operations, correct?
No action item, but we do have a discussion item here. Of course, we've been asked to consider live streaming the board meetings. And I want to thank Mr. Labuda and Mr. Sullivan for putting together this proposal. And,
You're welcome. You're welcome. And thanks, Mr. Sullivan and everyone who kind of jumped on board here and helped with this. So before you is our recommendation. We can look through it. I'm sure you've looked through it already. Mr. Sullivan is here. Thank you, Mike. As you know, you requested that we look into this possibility. We did thorough research on this. Other districts, solicitor, we read school code. We did a lot of different things. We talked with Dr. Meekin. We presented it to Cabinet. Cabinet felt pretty good with the proposal. We met with Mr. Weir in August, early August, went through stuff with him. He was comfortable with it. Tonight, we're presenting this. Mike and I are presenting this to you. And then, if all goes well, we would look at in September starting the live stream. So, real quick, looking down through some of the key points from the legal lens to school policy, as we've talked about in the past, we wouldn't need to add any school policies because we have 903 and 006 currently in place, which allows for the recording of meetings. And it says that the minutes come from the secretary, not from the recording. And so those are the two key things, and they're already in our policy. So no need to create a new policy for that. How would we document this process? We thought maybe in a mid guideline, and this might be a place where we have some discussion. What would the admin guideline look like? Basically, this proposal just in our admin guideline format, but we probably want to document somewhere how we're live streaming. Should there ever be a question, how we're live streaming down the road instead of just going to it and not having any documentation. So the suggestion, the recommendation that we're making is that we just have an admin guideline to 006. 006 is the policy for meetings. There's already a 006-1 for meetings for virtual attendance. So we would just create a 006-2 for live streaming board meetings. If the board wasn't comfortable with that and you just want to go with it and stick with this proposal, that's fine too. There's no requirement to have it. But if you want to document the process, that's our recommendation. No requirements to archive, so we do not plan on archiving. No requirements to have public comment virtually, so our recommendation is that we do not offer virtual public comment. We do feel that the agenda should contain a statement that's a reminder that says this is being live streamed. And the solicitor also provided a second bullet there that states the opinions expressed by any members of the public during the public comment do not necessarily reflect the views of the board. Just as a, So that's our recommendation, that we include these notifications in an admin guideline. And we also thought it'd be a good idea for the board president, before the meeting starts, just to remind for the first couple of meetings. And just remember, please speak into your mics, we are now live streaming. In terms of the link, we recommend that the technology team place the link on the district homepage with a malfunction disclaimer. I don't know if that's the appropriate terminology, but that's what we called it. Basically, that states, hey, if this were to go down, if there was a glitch or something were to happen, we're moving on with the meeting in person, right? We're trying to provide the live streaming, but if anything were to happen, our real meeting with the minutes and everything is going to continue on. So we would put that there with the link. And we would also put in there, replace that on the board agenda. A couple other just things that came to our mind as we tried to anticipate questions. If a board member is participating virtually, there is no requirement that those watching the live stream be able to hear the board member who is participating virtually. Now, talking with Mike and Mr. Anderley from the tech department, chances are with our mic system, if the meeting's here, that will happen, but there's no expectation that those live streaming can hear a virtual board member. Of course, it is important that we all can hear the board member that is attending virtually, and they can hear us. That would be a policy. We'll provide closed captioning as much as YouTube has that built into their features. We do recommend live streaming both committee meetings and school board meetings. Point that out. For the board meeting, it would start when we call to order, and it would end when we adjourn. For the committee meeting, it would just start and stop, corresponding to the start and stop. The chat feature would be disabled, not monitored during the meeting, so we're not going to sit there and have someone doing the chat. And we'll also not build in any intentional delay, other than the normal delay that occurs anytime you watch a stream. One item that we went back and forth on, and I really like this idea from Dr. Meekin, is we're going to have our own dedicated YouTube channel for the board meetings. We already have a YouTube channel in the high school auditorium for various events, musicals, sporting events, but our recommendation is that we create our own dedicated YouTube channel, so that if you want to watch a board meeting, you know where you're going, and you're not flipping through pages of musicals and sporting events and so on and so forth. Also, as we connect more with our community and our external stakeholders, there's a lot of scalability here. There might be a message you want to get out of YouTube. Maybe there's a message superintendent wants to get out. Now we have a dedicated channel for that instead of it being mixed with everything else. So it's not like there's added cost or anything, just a little added work. So we're recommending that we have our own channel for the board meetings. Mike, did you want to talk at all about scope of work and IT support?
Yeah, just real quick, kind of what we decided on was a fixed installation here. We kind of went back and forth a little bit. We had originally thought maybe a camera here where the podium would be, but we thought that might be too far forward, so we're going to mount a camera up here in the back of the room so we can see all of you sitting at the table there. And then we would have an additional camera, and the sound connection and streaming piece would be portable, so that if we want to take that on the road, like when we go to Wellsville, or potentially if we would have something in the cafeteria with the high school or some other location, we would be able to do that. So I think it's down there towards the bottom. We're estimating the cost for the equipment that we need to be under $2,000 for that solution. And as it said down there, most of what we install here will be permanent, and then we'll have a case of stuff that we can carry off-site for those few times that we go off-site. I think that was about it in terms of technical work that needs to be done.
Great, thanks, Mike. And so that's our recommendation. So complaints, disagreements.
I think our current policy allows the public to record meetings as long as they disclose prior to recording that they're gonna be recording the meeting. Is that policy or is that practice, do you think, can maintain? I mean, is there any reason to do that if we're live streaming, or just keep everything the way it is? Just let people say, hey, I'm gonna record the meeting anyway.
I think my suggestion would be not to, just keep it the way it is. I think people have a right to, participate in meetings if they're participating in meetings by making themselves a recording of the meeting. To me, that's really up to them. I didn't see that it does any harm. But now we'll have our own narrative on the meeting that will be broadcasted anyway. So maybe folks will feel that they don't need to do that when we move more into the public arena. So my suggestion would be just to let it play out.
Al Apple is YouTube closed captioning. I mean, I'm not familiar with it, but sometimes when if you catch something on TV and it's like the live, you're reading some stuff, it's like, okay, that's not what they're talking about.
It's not perfect,
Okay.
because it's live, so it kind of has to do it, and, it runs a few seconds behind, and it does it as it's listening to what's being said at the meeting, so it's not perfect. But, in my experience, it's good enough.
And is that a user turn on, turn off? I
Yeah, you don't
I
have
want it
to-
to be
You don't have to
full
have,
information.
yeah, you don't have to have YouTube closed captioning turned on when you're watching the stream, it's an option.
That's up to the user.
I don't know if it's worth noting somewhere that closed captionings may not accurately reflect the discussion that's occurring. Again, I'm not familiar enough with it, but
I think that's a detail for me. If the board agrees, let's get it up and running, and then we can make tweaks. I'm sure we probably won't get it 100% right the first 1 or 2 meetings. Those are things.
So it'll be closed captioning as we're talking, but it won't be recorded. In other words, we're not gonna be permanent record,
Mike, you want to?
No, it will, the way the channels work is there will be a recording of the live stream, but it will not be publicly available, and it'll disappear after a certain period of time.
All right, I'm hearing give it a go. I'm hearing give it a go.
right? You like it?
Yeah, other questions, that, like bandwidth and stuff like that, like, we had the answers, so, yeah, I'm very comfortable with that.
All right.
So then I'll bring, Mike and I will bring, and not bring, but we'll get an amended guideline, basically with this proposal. And make sure that we have this process documented. And then it's a guideline, which means we can tweak it as often as we need to as we go through this. So thank you.
Thanks for your work on that, Mike.
And I'll disengage here and have it go back to Marlene.
So we got 2 items of new business. Joe, you wanna do those?
And letter A is approve of Dr. Meekin to sign any and all contracts, agreements, et cetera, with the Department of Education.
You and I talked about this document, just so everybody knows, this agreement is in place with Steve Kirkpatrick, prior to that with Dr. Eschbach, so this isn't anything new, this is.
Yeah, a lot of it is to do with the electronic signatures now. A lot of things that are coming through from the state that I have to attest to on a daily basis, and submitting grants and things like that need an e-signature. This resolution allows me to sign things electronically on behalf of the district. That's the scope of it.
And letter B is the approval of the superintendent's goals, 25-26 school year.
Yes, that's right. That's part of school code. After they're approved next Tuesday, we'll be looking at posting them on the website. Our website needs some work. That part of it is behind the times. So I'll be working with Jen Neidler about how to get those goals from the center for more communication with our community and also more accountability, so that people know what what the goals are, and what we're supposed to be working on. So we'll do a better job of publishing those goals rather than having them they're a little bit deep right now in the website, so we'll move them more front and center.
All right, very good. That's it with the exception of personnel. So we're going to take a quick 5 minutes and then we'll come back for exec session personnel. Thank you everybody for taking the time today.
You just want to meet for exec. You want to walk there or you want to stay there? Stay there, okay.
Go back and email this tonight.
They're
I think there's